Hey everybody, it's Andrew here, your average jeweler, and I wanted to talk to you today about a very relevant question, something that should apply to anybody that owns any kind of jewelry, regardless of what it is, and that is cleaning your jewelry. It's an important step, it's a necessary step, and it's going to make a huge difference, but you have to do it right. You don't want to mess up your jewelry. So stay with me, we're going to learn a little bit more about that, and I'm going to talk about 4 things that you should be thinking about before you start cleaning your jewelry. Let's get into it. All right, so I've already mentioned it, I've already alluded to it, but you can mess up your jewelry. You can ruin it. And even if you don't ruin it, sometimes you can make it into something you did not want it to be, or make it look like something you didn't want it to be. So we're going to talk again about 4 different questions I think you should be asking before you start into the process, and I'm going to try and give you a little bit of help into going about it. Now, number 1, you have to figure out what kind of jewelry you have. You cannot go into this process acting like every piece of jewelry is going to be cleaned the same, because it's not. And you can ruin your jewelry. I can't emphasize it enough. You can and will ruin your jewelry if you don't figure out what it is. There are a few items, if you absolutely know that it's a diamond, for instance. Diamonds are pretty hard to mess up. But with that said, what that diamond might be in, you have to use some kind of care in making sure you understand how to clean it up or how to take care of it. We're going to identify what type of metal it's in, first of all. If it's plated, you might be in trouble. Usually plated things are very hard to clean up. So with that said, just understand if it's plated, a lot of the cleaning processes will just wear away that plating even more. It's one of the things about costume jewelry. When we're talking about sterling silver, the most obvious thing is going to be tarnishing, but you have to make sure you're dealing with silver. Same with gold and platinum. You need to understand what metal you're dealing with before you start messing around with it, because you can really mess something up and you don't want to ruin your jewelry. So you need to figure out what metal it is. Usually you can tell by some kind of stamp if you don't know already. You can take it to a lot of jewelers and they may be able to help you identify pretty quickly on some of these points. You're also going to want to figure out what kind of stone you have. This is super important if you have any kind of porous stones. And by that I mean your opals, your pearls. Those are really great examples. Amber. Those are the kind of stones that you need to be aware of their porosity, because their porosity is part of their characteristics, and if you don't take care of it, you can ruin them. And some pearls and some opals are beautiful and valuable, and the last thing you want to do is put it in something that's going to just take all that away and make your stone look like it's not something nice at all. So you want to know what you're dealing with. The other thing you want to think about with stones is it an imitation? Is it a synthetic? Is it genuine? Are there any things that when you purchased it, they told you that would be helpful to remember? Again, sometimes you may have to go see a jeweler about these questions, but they're important. It's important to know what you're dealing with. So with that said, you're gonna also wanna know how it's made. And by that, I mean a lot of jewelry is made differently. So if it's made from a typical soldering construction, it's gold, the stones are set tightly into prongs. Those are the type of pieces you don't have to worry as much about how they're made. The ones I'm talking about are if it has any kind of cement or glue involved. You want to make sure you know that before you start into the process, because you don't want to be dipping it into solutions where that glue can actually come apart. Some things look like they're set into prongs and they're actually glued in there. Again, we're talking about kind of that costume jewelry category. So you really want to know ahead of time what kind of jewelry you're dealing with, but that's going to be a big step in knowing how you should go about cleaning it. So you're talking about the metal, you want to know the stone, and you want to know how it's made. So you have to identify these things, and if it's an important piece of jewelry, you really should check with a jeweler if you don't know. So figure out what it is. So number 1, Identify what it is. Number two, you need to decide what it is you want to do with it. And by that, I mean, is it a piece that actually does need just cleaning? It just has some gunk and residue built up on it, you need to get that off? Or are you actually wanting to polish your piece, meaning has it lost its shine and that polish needs to come back to a high luster again? Those are two very different things. They need two different processes. So with cleaning, we're going to be able to get into that a little bit more and some tips and know-how in how to clean. If you're polishing, there's going to be a different technique altogether, and some things you actually need to take it to someone that has maybe a polishing wheel or just understands better how to work on the piece. If it has a lot of intricate design involved, you may need professional equipment for that as well to get into all those nooks and crannies without ruining your jewelry. So just make sure you know what you want to accomplish out of this. When I look at sterling jewelry, it's almost always people want to get the tarnish off of it. They want to make it look white and shiny again. Sometimes after you've done that, it looks really dull because it also needs to be polished. So understand, those are two different things. Polishing, cleaning, you need to do them separately. You can't approach them as if they're the same thing. You can clean your jewelry, but it's not necessarily going to look shiny. So if we're cleaning it, that's one thing. We're gonna know a lot of that information after this video. If you're polishing it, understand there are going to be more limitations on polishing something. So you need to figure out what you're trying to accomplish. So the third question, the third thing you want to do is decide what kind of technique that piece needs. So you're going to use the information you got in the first step, which is figuring out what it is, and then you're going to use the information you used in the second step, which is does it need a cleaning or does it actually need polishing, or maybe you need something completely different. So you need to decide that. And then when you get to this third step, you can actually start implementing. And so I want to talk about polishing a little bit because again, polishing is going to be more limited. And polishing, usually you're going to find some kind of a polishing cloth. And there are different types of polishing cloths. Some of them are just a soft cloth. They may even come with certain jewelry that you get. A lot of nicer silver jewelry may come with a polishing cloth. And so the polishing cloth, you're just going to want to rub that over any solid area. Usually you want to be really careful rubbing it on delicate pieces. I'm thinking of your delicate chains and the like. If you start rubbing those, you start wearing them more quickly, but also you're pulling at them. You don't want to be pulling at a delicate chain. This is why it's important to know what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. So polishing, you can use a polishing cloth. There's also what they call rouge cloths. So the rouge cloth is going to have, on the one side, it's actually going to have a sheet that has a chemical material that's going to help you polish it up. It's known as rouge by many, and that's actually in the cloth. So you're going to rub some of that on, and then you're going to fold it over, and you're going to use the side of the cloth that doesn't have any rouge on it to really give it a nice shine. I can't emphasize enough, polishing is best on a solid piece of metal. So if you have some kind of a bangle bracelet, you can use it on a solid ring to bring a lot of that polish back. Understand, if it has a lot of deep scratches in it, that's going to get into more refinishing. So you're not going to be able to take out every single deep scratch by polishing it yourself. Depending on the finish you want, you may have to take it to a jeweler to have that part done. But you can at least maintain a lot of the luster and give it some of that polish that you remember from when it was new by using a polishing cloth. Past that, you're really going to need some professional help, I believe. So if you're not polishing and you are in fact cleaning, which is what a lot of people are intending to do, they want to just clean their jewelry. Engagement rings, anniversary rings, maybe it's a pendant that you wear a lot, and it just doesn't look as brilliant as it once did. Diamonds, for instance, they do need cleaning. Certain stones will attract dust. They actually have an electrical charge and they literally attract dust. So you need to be aware that jewelry needs to be cleaned. Stones in particular can look really dull if they're left uncleaned. I can't tell you how many engagement rings people bring them in, they ask us to clean them, and we do a really quick cleaning, get some of that gunk off the bottom, and it looks like an entirely different stone. It's a huge change, huge change. So it may just need to be scrubbed on the bottom, and I'm gonna tell you the number one biggest secret for most jewelers when it comes to cleaning. Hang on. This little tool is the number one tool for cleaning jewelry. And maybe you knew that already, maybe you didn't, but it is a toothbrush. This toothbrush is our biggest friend when it comes to cleaning jewelry. Again, maybe your piece doesn't actually need cleaning, maybe it needs something else, but if all it needs is a cleaning, then it's very possible if you get yourself just a soft bristle toothbrush, you're 80–90% of the way there. But you're also going to want to use some other things. We talk about different solutions. There are some solutions that you can use at home. There's people that swear by Windex, and I believe that it's safe. The ammonia in there does break down a lot of things that will gunk up on jewelry. I know some people will use baking soda for certain things. I believe that that gets more into trying to polish it up a little bit. Baking soda, vinegar. These are all at-home remedies, toothpaste. These are things that people have used successfully that you can implement, and just lightly use that toothbrush. You're going to want to brush on the underside of the stone. You're going to want to make sure you get in there really good. And ultimately, whatever you do, rinse it well. And this goes back to identifying what you have, because pieces that are cemented in, you want to be much more gentle with them. You can scrub them with a toothbrush, and most solutions that you purchase for jewelry cleaning will say that they're safe for porous stones like opal and like pearl, but you do want to be more delicate. You don't want to just go to town. When I pick up a diamond or a sapphire or a ruby or most of these hard stones, these gems, I know pretty well that I can scrub it really briskly without any concern. And that's going to be an easy thing to do. One of the things I would add on to that is if you keep up with it, it's going to be much, much easier. If you don't clean your ring for 6 months, you may have to take it to someone to have it professionally cleaned, because there's no way you're getting off everything that got stuck to the bottom of your stone. So be aware, if you clean it every couple weeks, it's going to be pretty easy to maintain for the most part. That's the biggest thing. I don't think it's a huge hack. I don't think it's a big secret, but use a toothbrush, get some kind of a reliable cleaner, and clean it often. That is your biggest secret. Now, if you want to get something that's a little bit more intentional for your jewelry, an actual jewelry cleaner, there are several names out there. I would say stop into your trusted local jewelry store and see what they sell. Most jewelers will sell something, and generally you'll pay a little bit more for it. Not a lot, it's not super expensive most of the time, but it's typically going to be a better cleaning solution, something that's trusted, something that's pretty reliable. So I would say you don't have to have something special, but you will have better luck with a jewelry cleaner that's intended for it. Now, if you have one of those stones that might be a little more fragile and you're not sure how to care for it, you can check the directions on most jewelry cleaners and make sure that it mentions something about it. Most actual jewelry cleaners will mention if they're safe or if they're not safe for your jewelry. So just take 10 seconds, look at the label, make sure you know what you're doing and what you're using. And if you're taking these steps as I described them, you are far less likely to ruin your jewelry, and it will last for a long time. Pearls and opals can last for generations. But if someone doesn't know what they're doing, for instance, if you put your jewelry on first and you're wearing a strand of pearls and you spray all kinds of perfume and you put makeup on it and you do all those kind of things, well, over time you are actually deteriorating your pearls. If you clean them off, and you're going to mitigate some of that. But the whole idea is you have to know what you're dealing with. I'm going to get into the last part of this, which really has to do with if you can't do the first 3 questions. If you can't identify it especially, and if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, you should really get help. Or if you go through all these steps and you still don't have the outcome you want, get some help. take it to a jewelry store, someone local, usually an independent that other people in your area trust. Take it in there and ask, what can I do with this piece? Because they're gonna have equipment like pressure steamers, which you can get these at home, but you have to be very cautious. Not all gemstones are safe with that sudden heat change. Just like you drop an ice cube into your water and it cracks, that actually can happen to stones. You can put a stone under a pressure steamer, and that temperature change, being as sudden as it is, can actually crack and break certain gemstones. So know what you're dealing with. Again, diamond, sapphire, ruby, many other gemstones are safe for that, but I don't have the time to go into every single gemstone in this video. I do want to take the time to explain as much as I can in a relatively concise way what you need to do in order to keep your piece alive. But if you have tourmaline, if you have aquamarine, if you have amethyst, if you know what stone it is, just type in concerns for cleaning, or you can go to reputable sources like GIA, that's the Gemological Institute of America. You can go to AGTA, the Association of Gem Trade, or the American Association of Gem Traders, excuse me, AGTA, and you can look at some of their sources, because they will actually have certain sources, or go ask your jeweler. Again, it may be something you need help with. So just be careful if you purchase some of this larger equipment, like your steamers, your pressure steamers can get you into trouble, but they can be fantastic tools as well. You also have ultrasonic. Most jewelers will have ultrasonic, and this again is a generally safe cleaning, but jewelers have to pay attention to what they're putting in there, because similarly to steam cleaners, ultrasonic can damage certain jewelry. It can damage certain gemstones. So be aware of that. Those are usually the kind of things you want to take it into a professional if it gets to that point, or if you're not having success the way you want. So again, number one, identify what you have. I can't tell you how important that is. Number two, decide what you want to do with it. Once you know those first two, then you can decide what technique you need, and you can use certain resources that I mentioned. You can even just type it in online and see what concerns might pop up. Even Wikipedia might give you something on this. But do a little bit of research once you know what you have and what you want to accomplish. And then once you use that correct technique, if you're still not getting the result you want, or you're still not sure about something, take it to someone who knows. Take it into a jeweler that understands that, someone that understands the gemology. I certainly don't mean to offend anyone, but usually your chain jewelry stores, the people at the counter are not going to be the ones to give you the best advice for this. So take it to someone that really understands, that has some gemological education, and can give you practical advice on how not to kill your jewelry, because that's the last thing we want. When you have a special piece of jewelry, you don't want to hurt something permanently. So please follow these steps. I genuinely hope it helps. If you have more questions that I didn't answer, or you're looking for specific resources, you can comment below. Please like and subscribe if you found this helpful or even informative in any way. And I hope to follow up in the future with some more helpful and practical tips. It's my passion to educate people on these many different questions that I think it's hard to find the real answer. There's so much marketing out there. There's so much ignorance out there. Some of it is on purpose, and some of it is just we don't know. So thank you for learning with me. I hope you keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.